Welcome to another episode of the Rock Fantasy Files. On this episode, we're gonna. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong notes. I'm a little screwed up right now. Sorry. Okay, welcome to another episode of the Rock Fantasy Files in another series of albums celebrating milestone anniversaries. We're gonna tonight. We are paying homage to the mighty Blue Oyster Cult and their eponymous self-titled debut album that was released on January 16th, 1972, the 50th anniversary of Blue Oyster Cult and self-titled records. Some notes on this album: the Transmaniac Pond MC is about the Altamont 3 concert, if people didn't know. Then came the last day of May, last days of May. One of my favorite songs from this album was based on a reportedly true story when two friends of Dharma's were killed in a drug deal gone bad out in the West. It was still in soft white underbelly days when we were playing dances at Stony Brook University on Long Island for our money. 3 Stony Brook students went to Tucson, Arizona to buy some bulk marijuana for resale. I don't know how they got whatever contact they had, but it was 2 brothers from one better to do families in Tucson. They never intended to sell them any pot. They just wanted to rip them off and shoot them, which they did. They took them out in the desert and shot them. It was 3 guys, and one managed to survive and get back to the highway. I wrote the story from basically the newspaper accounts of the Long Island newspaper Newsday. There's a personal connection too. I knew one of the guys casually from Stony Brook University when we were hanging out there. And a little bit of water goes a long way because it's hot. Just love that song. It's so great. And,
It's good.
that wraps up my intro into this album. I don't have a lot of other info on it, but I do have my favorite songs to talk about a little later on. And I'd like to welcome our guests. We got Rick Labane, singer-songwriter, who should be opening up for Alice Cooper, but the damn COVID stopped that he was just talking to us about with his band. We got Denny, the Sasquatch. We've got a Bigfoot sighting from up in British Columbia. Welcome. And we have Tony Dio back on the channel. We've got Rand Kelly from sunny California. And we got Joey Spaghetti Lee. And we've got Ralph, Count Ralphus, Ralph Tambora. He's switched over with his Blue Oyster Cult background, and he's our metal historian. I think he should have a rock and roll museum. He's got such cool stuff. So I'd like to welcome everyone to the show, and thank you all for your time with the channel. Does anybody got to run off first? I know some people may have to go to work. Ralph, is that you? So why don't we let you kick off the show, Ralph? And then
Nice, Ralph. Nice.
when you got to disappear, just hop off. And we're talking about.
All right. Yeah. So this is such a great debut. I've been listening to it all week, and
Yeah, me too.
it was pretty hard to pick out the song. I mean, there's not really a bad song on here. It's a really great debut. I guess for my number 3, I'm gonna go with Cities on Flames with Rock and Roll. It's just great. There's so many great riffs throughout this whole album, but that song is really memorable. She's as beautiful as a foot is my number 2.
Wow.
It's got like a trippy Pink Floyd atmosphere to it at times, and for the longest time I used to think she's as beautiful as a book. I didn't know it was a foot. For a long time that was a mistaken lyric for me. But Transmaniacon MC is my number 1.
Wow.
I got to see them last month, and I got my set list from the show. I
Nice.
They opened up with
I
that.
love
Wow.
that.
Yeah, they opened up with that, and that's my favorite from this album. And yeah, I had like 4th row tickets, so as soon as the show ended, I seen the set list was taped to the ground. I ran right up there and grabbed it.
Nice.
Right here in Middletown at the Paramount Theater.
Got a bunch of those. Do you know that show? I didn't even know it was there.
Not
Right
like
in my
a lot of people
backyard.
do,
I didn't even know it was there.
Hey,
they
I
played
mean,
there
I'm the
plenty of
record
times.
store in town, and no offense, I'm friends with everyone over there, but I told them put a poster in my window or something for these shows. And
Yeah,
at the
really.
Marshall Tucker band the following week, and there was even less people at that. It was small turnout.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird show because I mean, for one, it was a bunch of people who got the old soul sitting around, and people were in seats the whole time.
Oh
And
yeah,
I had work the night before, and I was pretty tired, so wasn't too bad sitting down. But they didn't have much of a stage show either. They didn't have any kind of backdrop. There was no
yeah, it was
light
no
show.
frills. Yeah,
No Godzilla came out or nothing, but they still rocked. They were still great, that they sounded perfect, and I'm glad I caught it.
and showing your set list, it's amazing that this band, 50 years in, and they're kind of underground. I mean, they're not. Maybe they're not underground, but I think they're underrated when it comes to bands that have been putting out albums for 50 years. And their latest album was a strong release.
Agreed.
Yeah, really
Yeah.
great. One of the big disappointments of the night is on the very bottom of this list is they had The Alchemist, and that's my favorite song on the new album. And for I think the curfew hit, and they didn't play it.
Oh, cool. Anything else you want to show? Or you got any other
my
props, Ralph?
No, I didn't get many props. I got the vinyl, I got the CD,
Okay.
got my tickets.
And what kind of a rating do you want to give the album between 1 and 10?
I give it a solid 8.
Okay. Where does it rank in your category against other Blue Oyster Cult albums?
It's right up there. It's
Mhm.
it's such a memorable album. I'd say it's in the top 3 for me for Blue
Cool.
Oyster Cult.
Great. And I'm going to move up one square to Rand. Rand, welcome back to the Rock Fantasy Files. Always great to have you on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on, Steve. Appreciate it.
I want to hear your Blue Oyster Cult stories from tours, if you saw them back in
Yeah.
the
I've
day.
only seen 2. The first one, they were playing, I think it was the Heaven Forbid tour. What year was that?
Oof, got me swinging on that one. That's not an album I'm not familiar with. That.
That's like 98, maybe 98, 90.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just got in from Czechoslovakia and came to Piercy, California at the Eel River Run where all the bikers were.
Oh,
And they were really, really great. And I
Cool.
thought, my God, they were on a plane for 13 hours and came over and just rocked the crap out of right in front of a river, the Eel River. It was unbelievable in the summertime. That's the first time I ever saw them, and they were incredible.
I'm used to you. Yeah, I'm used to you telling me I saw them in '73.
Yeah.
No, not this band.
Yeah,
I gotta
yeah,
be
okay.
honest. I gotta be honest with you, Steve. When you said you want to do this album, I had never heard it. I've only heard.
Really? Wow.
I have 3 live albums. Okay, I have On Your Feet or On Your Knees,
Mhm.
Some Enchanted Evening, and Extraterrestrial Live.
Excellent.
That's all I've got for Blue Oyster Cult. But I've got, Spotify. So
Yeah.
I listened to as soon as you said it. Can I do it? I said yeah, and I've been cramming for school, listening
Cool.
to that. I've heard the album like 12 times since you asked me. Plus today I listened to the live 45th anniversary. Oh my God.
Oh, I haven't heard that one.
That thing is
Me neither.
incredible.
Yeah.
It's so intense. I mean, it's like 5 times more energy than in the studio.
I have to check that out.
It's
Yeah,
I didn't even
amazing.
know that. I didn't even know that
It's
existed.
amazing.
Me
Their
neither.
the live version of She's So Beautiful,
She's a foot.
She's a Foot. It's just incredible.
It's an odd name for a song. Yes.
It is very
Yeah,
weird.
I think that was one of the first songs ever singing about foot fetish or whatever it is. I don't know.
Yeah, I was following along with the lyrics too, and I knew Transmaniacon MC was about the motorcycle gang.
Altamont, right?
They were guarding, or they were the security force at Altamont. And
Yeah.
the whole idea was that nobody wanted to pay him any money, so they gave him free beer. But he gives Hell's Angels free beer at a big concert like that, something's going to go wrong.
Bad idea.
And boy, did it. Have you
Bad
seen
idea.
the movie Gimme Shelter? It's
Oh, yeah. Just to make everyone familiar, this is about the Gimme Shelter
Yeah.
in the Altamont Festival with Grateful Dead and Rolling Stones and everybody else. Now,
And
Rand,
Starship.
were you at that festival? Rand?
No, I
No,
missed
okay.
that.
I
I
wasn't
missed
sure.
that. I was too young. I was
Oh,
still
okay.
cool. Yeah, but when you got a problem when the lead singer of the Jefferson Airplane gets knocked
Yeah.
out. by
You
security.
punch out
Yeah.
Marty Ballin. Of all people, you're gonna punch out Marty Ballin.
And then
That's-
Paul
Oh,
Kantner wants to take on the entire motorcycle
Uh,
gang.
Yeah.
It was an ugly. It was
Whoa!
The Grateful Dead pulled right out. Like they landed in a helicopter, saw what was going on. We're not playing.
yeah.
Bye-bye.
They just left.
Yeah, but it's a great movie. I mean, it's good. It's worth seeing. But anyways,
Oh, it's definitely.
I can
you
see
have
why
to see
Blue
it.
Oyster Cult wrote the song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great song though.
Get back to the band. I mean, it
Mhm.
is the lyrics are really what do you call it? Accurate, but they kept certain names out of it, on purpose. They're
Mhm.
trying to be like reporters, but they don't want to. Like the names are changed to protect the guilty.
Protect themselves
what-
too, probably, because
Yeah,
Mick Jagger had like a contract out on him after that.
Yeah.
Oh
It's
yeah.
the subject we could do a whole episode on the Give Me Shelter film.
I'm gonna Google the word transmaniacon. I'm not sure exactly what that means.
Yeah, I had a hard
Does
time
anybody-
spitting that one out.
Yeah, but
They revised that group in several of their songs, I think later on some different albums as well.
So what is your 3 song, pal?
oh yeah, right. I was going to say that. Yeah. Well, first of all, I think "Cities on Flame" with rock and roll could have been a Black Sabbath song. The way it starts out, I just thought, my God, that's Tony Iommi. He could have written that.
Well, they
The
say
heavy
that
riff.
they took that riff from the Wizard on the Black Sabbath debut
Well, I
album.
thought it sounded
Oh,
familiar.
yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
That's a note that I got off of a website today that I forgot to write down.
When
But,
I was in the Air Force, I was listening to that album all the time. I mean, that and Paranoid
oh yeah.
constantly. And I thought to myself, I know it's been 50 years, but my God, that sounds familiar to me.
But it's such a great song. I mean, it's still something that they're playing out live now, right? Ralph, they must have played that at the Paramount, right?
Every live album that I looked at on
Cities on
Spotify has
Flame.
"Cities on Flame."
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't miss one. Maybe some Enchanted Evening. I'm not sure.
It's
Not
not
real- I bought the one with the DVD.
the expanded version. It may be on. I can't remember.
Yeah, the one I got's got a live concert.
Albert
They're like
Albert would sing
performing
it.
in the street.
Yeah, I know the drummer Albert would sing it a lot of times, and I guess Buck. Or actually Eric does it now.
Great cover. God, I love that cover.
Oh yeah.
That's probably their best album cover ever. I think.
Like a black one. How is there there's not a Blue Oyster Cult blacklight poster. I find that hard to believe, except for that unauthorized one I have over here.
It looks kind of like Ichabod Crane, but he's got a head.
Yeah. Oh, he's the Reaper. Don't fear the Reaper. They got
Don't
the Grim
fear
Reaper.
the Reaper.
All
Yeah.
right. Anyhow.
Okay, number 2, right?
Mhm.
Number 2 is, hang on, I forget these titles. I'm on the lamb, but I ain't no sheep. I frickin' love that song.
Cool.
Especially that part that goes dun 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 dun. I wanted to grab my guitar and do a video for you before we did this, but I didn't have to.
Maybe
Yes,
after
I
the show.
I had my 18th anniversary with my girlfriend tonight, so
Yeah. Congratulations.
thank you. And we went to Red Robin.
Hey, better
Nice.
than Deutsche and
That's number 2. Anybody
wanna
want to
admit-
guess
I
what
wanna-
my number 1 is?
I want to mention for what you just talked about. They ended up that's the original version of that song. They changed it to the red and the black on the second album and redid it. And
Yeah.
it's more upbeat. It's got more of a
Yeah.
boogie to it.
Yeah, it's faster.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I can see that. They even
It's
put
about
the
a
lyric.
Canadian Mountie. It's about
They
these
used
guys
the-
trying to
they
get away
used
from
the-
Canadian
Yeah,
Mountie.
they
Yeah.
used the red and black lyric in there. I go to myself, I went,
Yeah.
is that on Tyranny Mutation?
Yeah.
I didn't
Same
get a
song, basically. Yeah.
I avoided the other albums on purpose. I just wanted to dive into this one because
Sure.
I'm the new kid on the block with this album. You guys are more veterans with it. but I fell in love with it. It's a great album. What a debut. I mean, corker. Anybody want to guess what my number one's going to be?
Last Days of May.
Stairway to the Stars.
Stairway to the Stars.
No,
Cities on Flame.
no.
Oh, yeah, so
For the Kiss.
That
the
was
Red
number 3, Joey.
I'm
Go
saying
ahead,
Last
tell
Days
us.
of May.
No, and I'll tell you why. I don't like that song because of that echo percussion on the left speaker. It was driving me crazy today. You know what I
Okay.
mean? He hits the snare and then it goes.
All right, so you got us all stumped. We don't know
Off
what your
the
number
beat.
one is.
Workshop of the telescopes.
No, I like that one though. I don't see it on there because it's a little lower. She's so beautiful. She's a foot.
Okay, the one Ralph
It's
had.
my number one, and I'll tell you why. Because it shows a band taking a brave step into playing a crazy frickin' song with a crazy frickin' title and a crazy frickin' melody and crazy chords, and everything about it is just no commercial potential at all. It's a miracle that Columbia Records or Epic or whoever they were, it's the same company actually, said, yeah, that's fine, go for that. Because today you couldn't get that record on a radio.
Mhm.
Nobody would play that.
No one will play
It's-
anything with
It's so
guitar.
weird. It sounds like it was written on a sitar. It sounds more like something Ravi Shankar would do. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But heavy. And
Heavy.
I just fell in love with that
Yeah.
song.
When I just listened to it and took notes on that track, I wrote down psychedelic slinky.
Well, I
Bridget
noticed
Mode.
a lot of the album, you could tell the rhythm section is in mono, and then they have the guitars in stereo. But in that particular
Oh.
song, they made the drum pan out to the left, and they pan to the right. Not even the overhead mic would pan to the left and the over right. So it wasn't like half the drums left and half the right side of the drums and is another side, the speakers. So they actually manually panned that during that little drum fill in that middle of that song, which is kind of, the sign of the times,
That's a
Headphone
great catch,
classic.
Rick. That's a great catch, man.
All right. So
I didn't hear it with headphones. I just have it, with my speakers, and I'm laying back on the bed, just listening to it all. And the live version on this 45th anniversary is freaking unbelievable. Like I said, the whole album just
Yeah, I gotta hear that.
comes to life live. And another thing I noticed too, on your feet or on your knees, when they play Cities on Flame with rock and roll, the
Mm.
crowd was almost louder than the band for the
that's a
first
great album.
minute or two. And yeah, it was like the Beatles, like Beatlemania. I had no idea Blue Oyster Cult was that freaking popular.
So
Oh yeah.
the album
The later
cover,
albums, the later live albums, the later live albums don't do that. You don't
the
hear that.
album cover for On Your Feet, On Your Knees, the church is local to here. In fact, a couple of guys from Sea of Tranquility drove over and took photos in front of it during the pandemic when there was absolutely nothing to do. They rode down there. Ralph, have you ever been to that church?
No, I looked it up and tried to figure out where it was. People were going to
What-
be in the area. We were down
Yeah.
in Sleepy Hollow, and it wasn't too far from us, but we didn't.
Yeah,
we didn't-
Scal went and
we
Nick
didn't have the balance.
Sleepy Hollow, like Tarrytown or
Yeah,
near
it was-
Tarrytown?
somewhere in Westchester, I think. Yeah.
Within like 40 minutes of that area,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I didn't have the vinyl on me either.
Of course, they're a Long Island band, and I saw them a million times in Poughkeepsie, New York. I've seen them at Soft White Underbelly when they went back to their original name to play in like the small clubs when they were playing more of the civic centers and arenas. But
Does anybody know why they actually did that? Why did they play sometimes under Soft White Underbelly? Was it a contractual thing? Because I did know even as a kid growing up in Long Island, I knew Blue Oyster Cult used to sometimes play as Soft White Underbelly.
I heard back in those days that they wanted smaller places, so they needed smaller crowds, and they only wanted people who knew what Soft White Underbelly was.
other bands have done that. Ozzy Osbourne played the Chance once, and I hate that I bring it up because I don't remember what name they went under. But it was like a secret gig, but it was Ozzy, and I forget what they called it now. Ralph,
What about
Was it
Soft
Blizzard of
Frozen
Oz, maybe?
Fruit?
no, it wasn't Blizzard of Oz. We would have known that one.
I just
Because
remember
I know
that
they wanted to
Sabbath-
name the
Sabbath
band
is-
that.
Mm-hmm.
Ozzy's band that for that first record, they were gonna just call themselves Blizzard of Oz.
It
the
was,
band.
yeah, it was referred to as Blizzard of Oz when we first saw them on that tour. Yes. Yeah.
A lot of ticket stubs actually had that for a while.
Oh yeah. But
So
Blue,
what you end
Blue
up
Oyster Cult
ranking
may
the
have
album?
wanted to play new material. Maybe that's why they played under Soft White Underbelly to
I think
maybe
also it
experiment.
was,
That's a good point.
that was, that was the point that someone brought up. It was because they wanted to play a small club and they wanted just to be more underground and they went with that name. So maybe someone that just didn't know them as well. It was like
But
an
yeah,
under,
but if you were going to do that, that's what you would want.
Yeah,
You would
that's
want
what
the
it was.
faithful and the devoted to
Yeah,
show
they didn't
up.
want to play
instead of just-
Godzilla and Reaper, so they didn't want to play everything else.
Yeah.
let's,
The fans would know, you know.
so let's hop over to,
Oh, I forgot to rate the album, guys.
oh yeah, do the
I
rating.
always do that. I'm so sorry. I'm almost 70, so I do that.
Yeah, well,
But yeah, I'll give it an 8.5. That's a great
Cool.
debut. It really
Cool.
smokes. I was really happy with it.
so let's go over to, thanks, Rand, and let's go over to Denny Barthe. We're gonna bring Mr. Barthe on. Are you ready, Denny?
All right, I am ready, man. I'm always ready.
Good to see you, man. Great, always great to hang out.
Always good to see all of you. Oh, it's always so much fun to do this. So like I think this album by Blue Oyster Cult, like for me, was a great transition between the AP psychedelic rock of the end of the 60s into like the transition into what's gonna be coming up with Aerosmith, Kiss, and Nugent, and all that stuff. And like I said it many times, I was lucky to have older cousin that introduced me to that music. And I must have heard that album when I was like 7 or 8 years old. And Blue Oyster Cult for me, I don't know if it was the name or the way that it was presented, but it was always like super bizarre. Everything about that band was weird, from their look, the lyrics, the song title, the covers. They were extremely obscure, and like you could tell they were like they really spend time to do their craft and do their music, and there's so much good stuff into that. And it's the type of music you can go 20, 30, 40, 50 years later and still discover new little things that you never captured before. And like I saw Blue Oyster Cult many times in the late 70s, early 80s. And after that, around like 98, 99, 2000, they were like here out west many times. I probably saw that band 20 times.
Wow.
And it's always like, it's always a great performance. Like they never disappoint. The singing, the playing, it's so professional and well done. And I saw them in super small bars, like up north, Washington State, with maybe only like 50 of us, and them drinking after their show with us. And
That's cool.
and so not pretentious, very cool guys. And Eric Bloom is my favorite rock singer of all. I
Wow.
love his voice. I love his delivery. I think like in songs like Veterans of the Psychic Wars, like
Wow.
is so powerful. And so I do respect Blue Oyster Cult a lot. And I think this is one of like the most like unknown great debut album of a rock band. Not many people know this album, but it's super solid.
Mm.
My top three, it was super hard to go with top three. Like there's like at least 6 songs on there that could be my top three, but I went with number 3 would be Screams.
Oh, great song.
Because Screams has almost like a good like psychedelic, but also like a punk vibe to it. It's very like well, and they change beat. They start slower and then they go faster. So Scream is my number 3. Number 2, I'm gonna go with Transmaniacon MC. I just like that riff. Oh
yeah.
And the lyrics, like Rand mentioned about the Altamont, and when you were a little kid, you thought about like the bikers and the chaos that was then.
Right.
You almost wanted to be there. Like you didn't want to be there, but you wanted to be there. And that song was kind of transporting us into that vibe. And then my favorite songs, I know Rand's not gonna be happy, but then came The Last Days of May.
Oh, love it.
That's great. That's a great song.
To us when we were little, like we used to like listen to this song against like Since I've Been Loving You, or some of the other like great like blues rock song. Yeah, I cannot say enough good thing about the record. I give it a 9 out of 10.
Mm.
There's still some songs in there that sometimes I don't like, and then I go back, and then I kind of like go in and out. Like Stairway to the Stars. I listened to it so much, and they played it so much live that to me it's not as good anymore. I love Redeemed. Like people don't talk about that song a lot, but it's a very good song as well. But I'm giving a 9 out of 10. And against other Blue Oyster Cult album, it's really hard to tell because every Blue Oyster Cult album has its own vibe and own story and own like personality. So you're always gonna have like 4 or 5 songs on one album that you like, and then another album you like it's gonna be 3, 4, 5 songs you like. And but I agree with probably everybody, and that it's definitely in the top 3 best album that they release. So that 9 out of 10, top 3, and like so many good riffs, so many good music to discover in that album.
Thank you, Denny. And I'm going to keep it in Canada. We're going to move over to Mr. Rick Labonte. Oh, Canada.
Okay. Well, one of the things
Take
that
off.
talk about when it comes to Blue Oyster Cult. I mean, I got to see him. I do have a set list and some picks that they gave me while I was there, and they were sharing a bill with Kenny Wayne Shepherd, so they didn't play as long as their own show. So I seen that at one of the casinos here. But anyway, I think one of the things that people have this, I don't know, myth or perception that they're a really heavy metal band or hard rock band, and that's because their album covers scream rock and roll and hard rock. But they're more to it. They're not a one-trick pony. They got a lot of different tools in their toolbox that they put out, and all these different albums, like Diana said earlier, they definitely have its own merit and has strength. Now, this isn't my favorite album. It could be in the 5, or maybe not. I mean, but I do think it's a strong first album. And just like Rush, just like a lot of bands, it took several albums to get the notoriety that they deserve. They didn't get the big break of Don't Fear the Reaper or Godzilla, which is a few albums down the line.
Yeah.
And so anybody that knew this would be just like, because they don't have media, they don't have, internet, they don't have even the magazines weren't faithful for bands like that. You had to earn your keep. So it was an underground movement. They passed albums around like somebody, hey, you at a party and, you're getting stoned, you're getting drunk with a bunch of teenagers, and they say, hey, if you haven't heard this album, you got to listen to it. And that's how the fame a lot of bands, that's how Rush had to do it. Blue Oyster Cult was no different. They had to soldier on and be a opening act to a lot of big headlines before they got their break. And this album is usually a discovery people find later, right? They have to go back in that catalog and say, wow, this is a pretty cool hidden gem. I wish why wasn't this stronger in the beginning? And that's just because they had to earn and pay their dues to get that out there. And the way they did it is to play live and go on tour. And so it's a very similar story to a lot of great bands that we like. They didn't get their mark for 3 or 4 albums later. And but they do have more than just hard rock stuff, right? So, but the album covers are amazing for that. A lot of people put them in that category just because the album, if you judge a book by its cover, you're thinking, man, there's some heaviness. And I'm sure the word cult inside their name makes it even more metallic, or if not, or more hard rock presentation. But again, they have more than one singers, and they do share that opportunity. So my top 3, I think I'll go with, because I pick one that nobody mentioned so far. I would say Workshop of the Telescopes. I
Okay.
think that's pretty trippy, pretty, off the wall. And they remind me of bands like Budgie would have these crazy song titles, just goofy song titles, but rock, And I think my second one would be City on Flames with Rock and Roll. I mean, if they didn't play that live, I'd be kind of disappointed because it's almost like It's like Led Zeppelin's "Whole Lotta Love." You gotta hear it.
Yeah.
And I think my number one would be "Starway to the Stars" because
Okay.
I listened to that, and that chorus would be playing in my head
Yeah.
until I hear a different song. And I still, if I had that CD in my car and I go to my driveway and I pull in and the song's not over, I'm waiting till it's finished before I shut it off. I just don't interrupt it. It's got to flow. And but because I like a lot of their albums that would they finesse their career. How do I rate it? I would say 7.5 or 8, but it wouldn't be like in my top 3, but definitely in my top 5. Only because the production is limited. They get better as technology does, and you get near to some of the albums. It's just ear candy, material from whatever song, even a deep cut. You appreciate it. This I do hear that primitive raw blue oyster call, almost like a garage sound in some parts. I'm not saying the album isn't well produced. It is a sign. It's definitely a product of its time, but it's also lower budget. It's their first album. Just like Rush's first album is a great album, but
Yeah.
they get better sonically as they get more investment and more richer as they continue to go. So I think that's where it might fall down a little bit in the rating, but not because it's not strong material. Is that there's some better albums that yet to come, and that's the only reason. So it's not a shot. I would say 7.5 or 8. It's definitely a solid album, and I'm glad I got it. And if you get the remaster, you get some bonus track too. And I believe they add 4: Donovan's Monkey, What Is a Quickstand, a fact about sneakers. Betty Lou got a new pair of shoes, and these are all demos that
it's great.
never made it. But you know what? It's cool to listen to. If you listen
I
to it,
love that Betty Lou got a new pair of shoes. Is
yeah,
great, right?
like
That's a
that.
rocker.
Yes, right on.
The 2001 reissue that
Who
came
else
That's
out.
did- was
right.
that Bob? Was that Bob Seger that did a cover of that too? It's
Yeah,
an old
Bob Seger
classic.
did it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
No, he had a
Really
Betty
cool.
Lou getting out tonight, but no,
Betty Lou's own something. Yeah.
yeah. Betty Lou gets around, I guess. So anyway, needless to say, it's a good record and a really solid
Wasn't it Eddie
album.
and the Cruisers? Wasn't it Eddie and the Cruisers did it?
Maybe.
I don't know.
I remember the
Maybe.
song being in some movie. I can't remember what it was, but Betty Lou had got a new pair of shoes. I remember that.
I don't know, but one thing for sure that it was released in January 1972, so we're doing
Yeah.
it in the month of January, so that was kind of cool. It actually came out on 16th, I believe.
Yeah,
And
about 3 days ago after
Yeah.
we taped this. Yeah.
3 days ago, yeah.
yeah, but I just say the guitar players, how they coordinate between the two, and it's just a lot of thought process. And you know what? I think that might have been a template for a lot of great bands later on, like Iron Maiden, Judas Priest. All of them kind of got probably respected the fact that they're dual guitar players, and Smith did it, and so they did. They were in that kind of movement where bands didn't have the one lead guitar player. They got a couple of lead guitar players that will share the spotlight or share the vocal. So anyway, that's my rating.
Excellent. Excellent.
Hey.
Hey,
Steve, I gotta get going.
hey, Ralph,
but,
thanks for coming
Hey,
on,
Ralph.
man.
Have a good one, man.
Nice to see you again, Ralph.
See you next
Hey,
week,
hey,
Friday
Ralph.
or something for sure.
real
All right, cool.
quick,
So,
I
like,
just want-
we got Joey Spaghetti Lee left, and we got Tony Deal left. Do either one of you want to go first, or do I pick?
Steve, really quick. I had this prop that I wanted to show is
Oh,
I
the
have a feeling you'll end up talking about it when you do
Black
your
and
segment.
blue.
But
I was
Oh,
gonna
God,
go
I
with
wish
that.
I saw that at the
Good
theater
segue.
in
Good
San
segue.
Francisco.
I have
Yeah,
the
we
T-shirt here, but I've showed it on other Blue Oyster Cult episodes.
That's
It's never been
awesome.
Black
officially
and
released,
blue
but
jersey.
this is a bootleg because it's never been officially released for whatever reason. But
Right.
a real quick question, Steve, is you talked about how you seen him in Poughkeepsie a lot back in the day. Did
Yeah.
you go to this show, the Extraterrestrial Live? This was recorded in Poughkeepsie.
What year was that? What year did that come out?
88, right?
Yeah.
88?
No, that would have been like 81.
81, I think.
Oh, 81.
My memory's a little hazy. I believe I did see it. There's other live tracks from the Civic Center on their
Civic
live
Center.
albums too. I
Yeah.
believe On Your Feet, On Your Knees has something from Poughkeepsie and maybe even Some Enchanted Evening. I'm not sure. Poughkeepsie was kind of like,
This whole show was from
I,
Poughkeepsie.
I probably brought 3 different girlfriends to see Blue Oyster Cult those days, but it was like, hey, Blue Oyster Cult's playing the Civic Center, and it used to be this big parking garage. It's still there, and go see Blue Oyster Cult, and then of course Black Sabbath, Blue Oyster Cult I saw at Lebanon Valley Speedway, and to talk about the Altamont Festival, the security at this is something that happened in the 70s though. The security at the Lebanon Valley Speedway were biker clubs. I'm not sure if it was HA or somebody else, but it was a biker club security. There were cars burnt on, tipped over, caught on fire. People died. There were people tripping on acid in a party next to us where we were parked, walking barefoot through broken glass and trying to figure out why they were bleeding. This is just weird things I remember from that show. And we got there thinking Blue Oyster Cult, we've seen a bunch of times, but we were huge fans. We're playing first. So we weren't really going crazy. And all of a sudden you hear that, and Sabbath was going on first. So we like barrel ass from where we were parked over to the stage. And I remember a guy walking through a crowd with a giant cross on fire through the crowd, which you don't see stuff like that anymore at concerts in 2020 or 2021 or whatever metaverse we're in right now. Cool.
See you later.
On tour forever.
All
All
right.
right. Take it easy, Rob.
So I made Spaghetti Lee go last on the last episode,
all
so I'm
right.
gonna pop him in now, and then Tony, and then
All right.
I'll go last, and we'll wrap this one up.
Yeah. That would be a great segue because I was just going to mention that on the last Rock Fantasy Files, the one we did with AC/DC, I mentioned that AC/DC Fastway, the Flick of the Switch tour, was my first ever arena tour.
Oh,
So as I got older and got old enough to start going to these shows, the one legendary show that I was just a little too young, man, I just missed that legendary Black Sabbath, Blue Oyster Cult, Black and Blue tour. It was just legendary for guys that were a few years older
sure.
than me that would talk about that show. And I was always, it was always that damn, the one I missed. That still to this day, that was the show I missed. I missed that tour. I heard it was legendary with Godzilla and all this. It was just super.
Oh
cool.
yeah, I mean, Blue Oyster Cult set list back in those days when I saw them at the Civic Center, the drummer would put a Godzilla mask and there'd be these crazy strobe lights. So when Godzilla would be playing the drums is pretty much what they did back then. Yeah.
Yeah,
Laser.
killer, man. So I miss it. I just missed that one.
Oh,
Now
well.
this album is absolutely amazing, man. And just as like Denny mentioned, there's some psychedelia you could sort of hear on this record. I don't want to say it's dated because it's a great album, but you could definitely tell it's an album of its time, certainly in its production values and even stylistically. Some of these tracks have a psychedelia to them.
Yeah.
And and that was definitely, they was just coming out of the acid rock psychedelic era. But Blue Oyster Cult was definitely sort of progressive and heavy for the time. This record for a debut is amazing, and it's still being discovered. I think Rick mentioned that this was an album you come to discover later. I think still, especially in the stoner doom genres, people are rediscovering this record, either discovering it for the first time or rediscovering it.
Yeah.
Again, because it's a classic, man. I mean, it's really, really super cool. In terms of picking top 3 on this, man, I have a tie for 3. Then came The Last Days of May, and She's As Beautiful as a Foot. That's a tie for number 3. I might want to give it to Foot for the title. I mean, She's As Beautiful as a Foot. That's just poetry. And the other one that I really think is a super cool tune, I'm surprised nobody mentioned, is Before the Kiss, A Red Cap. I wonder what was up with that. But the riffage on that track is killer. I just love that track. It's nothing complicated, just a great riff. But my number 1 track on the record is definitely Cities on Flame with Rock and Roll. And it's got that like Sabbath,
Yeah.
Yes.
Like almost riff. It's the riff, man. It's one of those just
They say they kind of got the influence from the Wizard.
right. The Wizard. Yeah, you could definitely hear it. And there's another track on this record that's influenced by a Captain Beefheart song called Frying Pan.
Yes.
Which that's very obscure. Beefheart, really, really obscure. I know very few people that go deep into a Captain Beefheart catalog. So Blue Oyster Cult is really cool stylistically, more than a heavy band, more than they weren't. You couldn't really box them in. They were very unique, and they varied stylistically. But yeah, Cities on Flame is definitely my favorite. It's been done by a few bands. It's been done by this band here, Church of Misery, which is a doom band out of Japan.
Oh, wow.
Just brutal on an album called Master of Brutality. So it's killer. It's just a killer riff. In terms of scale of 1 to 10, I'm gonna give it a solid 7.5. Only would have rated it an 8, but the production is, it was low budget, I think, as Rick mentioned. And in terms of the rest of the catalog, I have to get more acquainted with the rest of the Blue Oyster Cult catalog. This is one of those bands that's been on my, I should just buy everything they have.
Sounds like we might have you hooked.
Do it. All right, I dig it. They're awesome. Really good, and I really want to hear the live version of this record. I mean,
So do I. Actually, I never did. I didn't even realize.
I didn't know till I saw it behind Random. Like, what is that?
I didn't know it existed until today, guys. I just found it by accident. I went, "What's this?" And I clicked it, and it said the entire album live 5 years ago.
Nice.
Oh, I gotta hear it. I
got about 3 or 4 DVDs, and they're all awesome.
Gotta check that one out. So yeah, those are my top 3, and I give it a solid 7.5.
And they do a killer version of Buck's Boogie because he goes, "How about some Buck's Boogie?" And they do like almost 8 minutes, just killer. They did the Beatles in there. You can't do that. Sneaky there.
So a little bit about the song before the Red Cap was all about they were at some get together or something, and they saw a couple going and slipping a pill through a kiss into someone else's mouth. So that's what, and the drug is, we don't need to talk about what drug it was, but yeah, that's what that
starts
song
with an
was.
S.
Yeah.
Hey, I wanted to say something before, and I forgot when I was doing my thing. Can I just say it real quick?
Yeah, say real quick, then we'll go to Tony.
5 seconds. Yeah, this band should be respected and given all the kudos in the world for not caving into record company pressure, producers, audiences, and radio stations. They kept to their thing, and they stuck with it, and they didn't follow any trend. They did what they wanted to do, and they're still going. And I just love that about them.
For
Sure. A little Temptation during the 80s when they're Burning for You. There was a couple that tried to duplicate a little bit of that because they were, making some money. But ultimately, but at the 80s, right? But to be fair,
they had some radio-friendly songs.
I mean, Fire of Unknown Origin is probably one of their most popular releases. I know a lot of people
probably their bestseller, I would think.
I think
I would think
John Crawford
put Agents of Fortune really high.
I love Agents of Fortune. I've got Agents of Fortune on in the store if you need one, Joey.
Okay.
Hey, but then Imaginos turned a lot of people off because it was too weird for people.
Yeah, they started to fall off there.
And I love Imaginos. I think
I do too. It's great. Yeah.
All right, so let's throw the ball over to Tony before we got him up pretty late. I know he's got to go to work.
Love your last name, Tony.
Thank you.
He's Dio, man. Dio.
You guys were mentioning She's a Beautiful as a Foot. Supposedly that song's about a woman whose face could change. Something like it could do
like a shapeshifter
changes or whatever. So that's just kind of still kind of odd song title. When I was getting into Blue Oyster Cult, and of course I got into them in the 80s and got all the stuff like Some Enchanted Evening and the later live albums, and of course Fire of Unknown Origin is my all-time favorite record by them. But the first time I went to see them ever was on the Imagine Those tour. They were playing in a club, and I didn't really know any of the really early stuff. I just knew stuff from Some Enchanted Evening and like the 80s stuff and all. And so they were doing a lot of the the older stuff then. And I just remember there was some drunk guy standing right next to me, and he shouted like every time they'd finish a song, he'd shout out, "I'm on the lamb. I'm on the lamb." And I'm like, what is he talking about? It took years later before I discovered that song was, one of their early songs. I picked up, they did a compilation album called Workshop of the Telescopes, which was a double CD. And that had all the early stuff. And that's when it just opened my mind to this whole new, all this early stuff that I was not familiar with. And so I have really become a fan of those first 3 albums. I mean, that trio of, they call them the black and white albums. They're very weird albums, and it's just all over the place. But I've become a pretty big fan of those on those albums now. And I think the last time that I saw them was 5 years ago. They were on tour they were doing celebrating 45th anniversary of this first album. Oh. And they did the majority of the album live. And my girlfriend at the time was so bored. She didn't know anything except the hit, It's like and everybody was sitting down at the show. It was a theater show, and everybody was sitting down. But I'm going to go with my top 3 picks here. Cities on Flame is definitely, I love that song. Great. The riff is just so catchy, and it's just a great song. It's, we're here ready to rock. And for my number 2 song, I'm going to go with Stairway to the Stars. Just a great song. It's got, it's kind of like, if you listen to the lyrics, it's kind of like this rock star. He's like blowing off his fans, and kind of like, you can have my autograph, and maybe I'll write good help to you. Kind of, which I've seen some guys, you always see guys sign autographs, best wishes, or, good help to you, or whatever. So kind of tongue in cheek there. And, but my number 1 is going to be, and Then Came the Last Days of May. I really liked that song. When I found out what it was really about, it was so mysterious. And then, of course, I read about what it was about, and it's like, wow, these guys went, they had big expectations of what they were going to do, and they didn't know they were being set up, and they were going to be murdered, basically.
It's like a devil's reject. It's almost like a devil's
reject. It sounds like something like from a Rob Zombie film, doesn't it? Yeah.
That song also gives me the same vibe almost of Riders of the Storm from the Doors, because it's about the desert, and it's got that kind of weird melancholic vibe. I don't know. Probably just the way my brain reacts to it. But
well, they have been known to be the intelligent thinking kind of band. It makes that sci-fi lyrics and all this stuff to a lot of people.
Kind of like Rush.
Recognize them as being, deep thinkers or creative imagination, right? But anyway.
When that first album came out, though, I mean, they were kind of being marketed as a American version of Black Sabbath, is what I've read. Martin Popoff put a great book out about them. And it goes into all the secrets revealed.
I tried to get Martin on tonight, but Martin had another thing he was doing. But I know he's a huge BOC fan, but not a big fan.
I remember he goes into a lot of detail about this cover art too. I mean, the cover art on this record is so cool. It was like, this guy's name was Golick. He was like a draftsman, and it's just so cool. I mean, you look at
the black and white years, the first 3 albums, all the black and white.
He did the first 3 albums. Yeah.
So really if your number 1 album is the same as mine, how do you rate this album?
I would rate this album. I'll give it a strong 7, and it's a great debut album for a band. Like you said before, there's no commercial appeal to it whatsoever, maybe except Cities on Flame.
Yeah,
it's kind of a catchy
song. That was the single from the album.
Yeah. Right on. I agree.
Yep.
Cool.
So I guess Rand's waving his hand. Rand, you're up.
Small little comment. When I first heard this Transmaniacon MC, I just blocked out the lyrics at first and just listened to the music.
Sure.
The first thing I thought of was Hawkwind with Lemmy on bass.
Okay.
Nice.
The only thing missing is the synthesizers, but they rocked out like just bam, right? I mean, they just hit you like a freight train going 100 miles an hour, right?
Yeah.
And I thought they're the American Hawkwind without the spacey synthesizers, and maybe those come in later, but more subtle. Hawkwind's really weird about it, But again, a long-lasting band doing whatever they want to do, and they're still going.
still going strong. And the last album, I know, like Peter Pardo on Sea of Tranquility, I think that was maybe like his #1 album of the year when that came out last
I
year.
love Hawkwind.
Top
I've been a
five.
Hawkwind fan for.
It was a great album.
The,
A symbol
the
remains.
I've seen them 3 times. They were just phenomenal.
So I guess it's my turn to give my
Yep.
3 and give it a rating and wrap this one up. I'm gonna have a tie for number 3. I'm gonna pull a whatever.
Pardo.
A Pardo, Butch Jones does it. I do it. My number, let's see, I'm gonna give it a tie of Stairway to the Stars, because anytime someone mentions it, the song immediately starts playing in my head in full force.
Me too.
And the Transmaticon MC, I love that too.
I
My
love it.
number 2, which a song that's grown on me, is Screams. I love that song. And my number 1 is Last Days of May. Until today, I had no idea what the meaning of that song was, and I really don't find out a lot of meanings for a lot of songs that I'm familiar with, because I get my own ideas in my head of what they're talking about. But I just love the whole thing. And I love that little lyric where a little bit of water goes a long way because it's hot. I don't know. Just it's a weird part of the weird part of the song, but it's so cool. And it's such a tragic story to find out about, because you don't first you're listening, it sounds like a cool vibe, you're hanging out in the desert and whatever you're doing, but getting murdered for drugs, buying a big thing of pot, and I guess they were bringing it back to Long Island to sell, and it was a total sad disaster story of a song. But Blue Oyster Cult, one of the greats, and I think one of the more overlooked bands, from this time period. I think they're underrated. I don't think they hold the same clout of a lot of bands from the 70s, and they should.
I agree.
Yep. And that's about all I've got to add to this one. So please, everyone, I hope you loved this episode and enjoyed it.
You gotta rate it.
Yeah, you didn't rate it.
Oh, I gotta
Steve.
rate it. I'm gonna give it an 8.
Okay.
I forget to rate it too. I'm like, Rand. That's right. We got the olds, like Chris Allo says.
Rate them before you start talking. That's what I did last time with the doors. That worked really well.
Start with the
Probably.
rating.
They probably got some shows coming up in your area, because they play up that way all the time, don't they?
The BOC just played Middletown
Yeah, just
in
played.
December. I do see them that they constantly tour. They toured through the pandemic. Ryan Scow, I tried to get on tonight from Sea of Tranquility from Hudson Valley Squares. He actually saw them like 3 times while we were all locked down. He drove to like New Hampshire, saw them at a drive-in movie.
Mhm.
He
Yeah.
saw them at a drive-in movie in Pennsylvania, so they didn't stop. They
I'm
didn't
gonna
stop.
see them. I'm gonna see them in May. They're doing the M3 Rock Festival in Maryland, which is usually like 80s, like mostly like
Yeah.
glam bands and stuff. But
Yeah, I'm familiar with
they've
that.
mixed it up a little. They've mixed it up a little bit this year, and they've got some pretty
That's
cool heavier acts on it and
That's
stuff
cool.
like Doro, Lizzie Borden and stuff.
Oh, Doro's coming over, huh?
And DOC's on it. So hopefully everything will be settled down a little bit by May, and everybody can come over and it'll be a
So is
good
this there? Is this
Let's hope.
are the dates during the last days of May?
show. No, unfortunately, the first days of May.
Early days of
Burn-
May.
They've even
Alright.
got Burning Witches on there this year. That's kind of cool.
I interviewed them on the channel actually. A female. They're actually managed by Smear Destruction, I believe. Has
Wow.
something to do with them. Rand was waving his hand, so before we hang up, we better let him talk.
Yeah, just a little quick thing. I don't hate the song. Then came the last days of May. It was just the way it was produced that I didn't really
Okay.
like the way that echo was in there. The live version doesn't do that.
Hmm.
It's
I have to
phenomenal.
listen to it. Now you got us all.
And Buck Dharma played a killer guitar solo, and the band goes really, really fast in the
Right.
middle of it, and it's just phenomenal. It's like they sound like Motorhead. It's incredible.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the echo, man,
Gotta
on the
get
track
this record.
workshop of the telescopes, they have this weird echo on the guitar. It's like a
Yes.
flangey sort of an
Yeah.
echo. It's really heavy,
I was gonna say
almost like
that.
overdone.
Yeah,
I
it
was
was
gonna say
actually
that's a weird
studio.
song because they do the drop down E minor, D, C, B, but they always do minor chords on every chord. And that's very uncharacteristic of that kind of song. You wouldn't expect to hear that. You don't expect an E minor, D minor, a C minor, and then a B natural. And it was just a very, very, again, adventurous kind of composing. I really like it.
Oh, cool. So I guess we should wrap this episode up. And I'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Joey, Denny, who disappeared, Tony, Rand, and Rick, of course. I'm not sure what direction we're heading for next week's episode yet. Still in planning. We are working on setting up an Alice in Chains episode. We're also working on setting up Frank Marino and Mahogany Rush, which I would love to do. And hopefully we can get Denny on board. I mean, last year we were supposed to get Frank himself on, but he's going through some health struggles. But Frank Marino's another band from this time period that I was listening to, just like Blue Oyster Cult, in a room that looked just like this. I try to, there he is. I saw Frank Marino many
10
times.
hours, 10 hours of Frank.
10 hours. So I guess Rand's in for that. If we pull it off, I'll let you guys know. And thanks for everyone for watching the Rock Fantasy Files.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
Talk about your favorite songs from the album of Blue Oyster Cult, self-titled, 50 years old. Rock on, stay heavy.